welcome back to Lap of the World. I'm Richard, and today we're just outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma in the small town of Manford. Why would I be in Manford, Oklahoma, you ask? Well, there's a racetrack here. Why else would I be here? This is, you guys, this isn't your first rodeo. You know why I go places. But you may also remember when we visited Hallett Motor Racing Circuit, that in that video I said that Hallett is the only place you can go to find a racetrack, or a road course rather, in Oklahoma right now. And that's not wrong. Sort of. War Bonnet Raceway Park, although it closed in 1969, still technically exists. Much more so, in fact, than the last abandoned racetrack that I visited in Augusta International. Augusta had been deliberately sort of demolished and incapacitated, if you will, for use. War Bonnet suffered a different fate. In the late 60s, 1969, 1968, the Keystone Reservoir was created in this part of Oklahoma, and that was going to inundate what used to be the small town of Manford, and they had to relocate it. And they ended up relocating it more or less, not around or in the track, but extremely close by. And that, combined with some really increasing safety regulations and expectations in racing around that time, kind of spelled the end of the ability to do business here in a racing fashion. So, well, that's unfortunate. I'll digress, and we are actually out here because the track surface that used to be War Bonnet Raceway Park still exists in its entirety. It is still fully paved. I suppose if, one were to pay off enough people that live right around it, you could probably still take a hot lap if you wanted to. But we're not going to do that because it's my understanding that the locals are sort of aware of this type of shenanigans and sensitive to it. And I'm not one here to stir up trouble. We will take a lap. It will not be at speed. But I'm mainly here to kind of, more or less what I did with Augusta. I'm here to kind of see what it would have been like to, drive a lap of this track that doesn't sort of exist anymore, and kind of imagine what it would have been like back in the day when you had such notables as Mark Donahue, Parnelli Jones, and Don Yanko, racing at the, at top-level motorsport events at this track, which is in, no offense to Manford, but it is a little bit in the middle of nowhere. And that's not strange for a track. So, it is what it is. But, at the moment, what we're looking at here, as you can tell behind me, there's not much left to it. It is currently what used to be the infield and spectator area is now a set of soccer fields, which at least I approve of that repurposing. Other way around, some erstwhile tennis courts back here, basketball court over here, and outside of that, what they've done is essentially they've gone and just connected a bunch of driveways to it and call it a day. So what you're looking at is a couple of little small communities here that connect to both sections of the track. Now, history-wise, the track opened originally in 1966, or rather it hosted its first race, as far as the information I've been able to find, in 1966. The last race on the track was a mere 3 years later in 1969. In that time, it actually did host some top-level Trans Am events. I've also seen, I haven't been able to corroborate that yet. I'll include it later in the video once I've had a chance to do a little bit more homework. This was a little bit of a while we're here last-minute exercise. But it may have even hosted Can-Am at some point. And I think, as you'll see, having kind of taken a sighting lap around once so far, I think I'm hugely entertained with the concept of something like a McLaren Can-Am car, which did run here, taking a 10/10th lap around this track. I can understand the safety concerns. We'll just put it that way. But anyway, before I ramble on too much more, we'll get to doing a little bit of an overview of the track. Now, I've seen a few drive arounds on YouTube, and it's a little bit of a mixed bag which direction they take. Now, near as I can tell from the historic photos, this track runs clockwise. So that's the direction I'm going to be driving it, starting it, near as I can tell what used to be the start-finish line. So let's get over here and we'll get gridded up and see what we can do. All right, so we are now gridded up on near as what I can tell is the old start-finish line for both of the courses here. There was both a 1.1 mile circuit that came first in 1966, as well as a 2.4 mile circuit that was an addition, a 1.3 mile addition onto the original circuit that happened in 1968 prior to hosting some Trans Am races. We're going to do the full circuit, although I will point out where the shorter circuit or the original circuit would have taken off. So without further ado, here we go. The lap record here is 1:52. We're going to get nowhere close to that because I don't want to have to deal with the police today. So anyway, starting off down the front pit straight, the pit road, the derelict pit road is still visible sort of to our left at this point in time. We'd be coming up here to where the pit out would have rejoined, and we would be coming into turn 1. So say hi to Liz and Gabe as they are waving at us there. Excellent. And we come into turn 1 here, and not picking up any hitchhikers. Into turn 2. So this would have been kind of a pretty technical section, not a suicide first turn by any stretch of the imagination, because your first real turn would have been down here. Now either you would have gone right for the 1.1 mile, but we're bearing to the left for the 2 mile circuit here, and minding in the traffic that mercifully doesn't exist today. You're going up over a rise, and you know, lots of people say this, my wife reminds me all the time, that Oklahoma is not flat, and indeed we have a pretty significant change in elevation here as we dip down into this area, which is both the neighborhood entrance as well as you know, coming into a sweeping right-hand turn on what would have been the old track. As we head back uphill past the row of mobile homes, I imagine that you know, having some horsepower or torque to your advantage here would have been a boon as we climb back up in elevation fairly significantly here. Next thing we're doing is kind of lightly cresting here onto a left-hand, not really a kink, I guess, and then heading down towards the hairpin. This is probably the most distinctive feature on the track if you're looking at it on Google Maps from above or something like that, because there's really nothing down here. There's, you know, a couple of small homes, but the infield section of the track, the inside section of the track is, you know, what probably used to be or is still a pasture of some kind. So we've rounded the hairpin, and we're, you know, we would normally track out, but we're obeying traffic laws. So we're gonna then set up for this next fairly tight left-hander. It's by no means a hairpin, but you know, probably close to 90 degrees, not quite 90 degrees tight. As we continue to proceed, we're going to avoid the people unpacking their trunk, wave at the neighbors, and continue on down here onto a little short chute that will sort of bear to the left eventually. I'm trying to imagine in my head what this would actually be like to drive at speed, and I think it would be pretty fun. It doesn't seem like it would be all that technical, but I think once you started pushing the speed up, you would definitely have to be on your toes for some of these turns. You know, this one would have been a tightening radius right-hander here that's going to dump you out into another straight section, sort of straight section, and then we end up at maybe the most eye-opening part of the track that I found on my sighting lap, which is basically a jump. Now this may have settled over the years, however, I'm gonna, you know, slow down a bit for it, even going 30 miles an hour or less here. And you can see where people have bottomed out there and probably have and some skid marks there, so I have a feeling there's been some, what do you call it, Saturday nighting. And at this point then we would be rejoining the original 1.1 mile circuit on the uphill side. If you still look across the soccer fields to the right there, you could see the old, the front straight, which we've already driven on. And this would have been, you know, again, sort of a technical transition back onto the old circuit. And then you've got a blind over crest turn here with children playing in the middle of the road that, you know, that's definitely a hazard you'd have to watch out for. Your lap time could really be impacted if you ran over the kids. And that's going to come down here into this crazy downhill, off-camber right-hander to finish the lap. Now, I don't know, I would have been really curious to watch some racing happening there because there's not a lot of track width there. So if you're trying to get it done on the last turn, you'd have to have your big boy pants on. But there, as we come back to where we started, is a lap of the former War Bonnet Raceway Park. And that, folks, wraps up our visit to the former War Bonnet Raceway Park, Oklahoma's first dedicated road course, now a sleepy rural neighborhood. If you're looking for it on a map, it's now known as Keystone Loop. As I corrected myself earlier, the lap record for the long circuit was 1 minute and 30 seconds, set by an Eagle Formula 5000 car in 1968. Another notable benchmark might be Parnelli Jones' time of 1 minute and 35 in an AS Class Mustang, also in 1968. If you do decide to visit War Bonnet, please don't try and beat or match these times, as the area is now distinctly residential. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was something we shot while in Oklahoma for other reasons, and we had a free morning to go and take a walk around an interesting piece of Midwestern racing history. For now though, I'm Richard, this is Lap of the World, and we'll see you in the next video, if not at the track.